I am Carol Clark, and I'm just one of you, but it is my great pleasure this evening, because Vicki Sanders is out, to get to introduce one of my very best friends, the, um, the fearless and nearly indestructible Lorelei Stierlen, and she is a very special lady. She has 4 degrees, one of which is an environmental science degree with a specialization in pedology. And if you were trained by Lorelei, you already know what pedology is. That is the nitty-gritty, dirty business of soil structure. And so tonight she is going to speak to you about pocket prairies. For the last 20 years, she has been studying and engaged in Blackland Prairie plants and conservation efforts at the Blackland Prairie Raptor Center, at the Clymer Meadow, and various other places, including the installation of pocket prairie gardens. So here she is in all her glory, Lorelei Stierlen.
I don't know about all my glory, but here we go. All right, so welcome. Tonight we're going to be talking about pocket prairies. Yes, for somewhere around 20 years, I've been doing large and small scale restoration. If you told me I was going to be doing this when I was a kid, I would have probably laughed at you, but this is where I've landed and I'm happy with it. So welcome to Pocket Prairie Landscaping 101 and gardening with native plants. Let's see if I can get this to work. Come on now, do something. No, you don't want to. Okay. All right, Rick. I need to advance. Why would it not?
All you gotta do is just click on this. It'll be fine. Now it'll work.
Oh,
Now you can use it.
okay. Here we go. So let's start off just a basic definition. There are as many definitions of what a pocket prairie is as there are. Carter has liver pills, quite flatly. This is the one I chose. And we're always talking about something small. Generally, they will say it's an acre or less. And the focus is usually on returning the native flora. In this particular instance, they're talking about pollinator friendly. When I think of pocket prairies, I think about ecosystem. So it's not just pollinators, it's everything. It's all of it. It's the plants, it's the mammals, it's the lizards, it's the snakes, it's everybody, including your soil biota, believe it or not. And that is a pocket prairie, but the focus is on bringing back the native plants, all right? And I will say this up front, pocket prairies are not restoration. I have to remind myself of this. Many of you know me as quite the Collin County plant hun. You don't have to be that way, okay? There's much more flexibility in this. That's fine. If you're interested in additional resources beyond this presentation, what on earth? No, don't go away. I don't want you. You can check out Native Prairie Association of Texas, Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, and you'll find lots and lots of really good information that may or may not be useful. Before I start this, I'm going to say, we're going to go through this for context. I'm going to walk you through, I've done it twice. I'm going to go through Plano. I'm going to go through what I did in Allen. Then we're going to go into the helpful hints from Heloise. And that's so that you understand why the helpful hints from Heloise, this is what, I advise, this is what you can do, this is what, maybe will work better and things like that. Because if there's a mistake to be made, I've probably made it. And I want you to see, and I'm going to show you, there's going to walk of shame of here. All right, I'm going to do it. I hide nothing from you, my fellows. First and foremost, though, how many in this room have done pocket prairies? Raise your hands. So if you are interested in this, understand there are a lot of people out here who can help you and answer your questions. And basically, most of us, you can't shut us up because we love to talk about this stuff. And most of us are more than happy to go, oh boy, did I do that? And that was not a good idea. All right. So lots of resources. Hopefully after tonight, maybe you'll be interested in doing this. By the way, if your area happens to be 1.3 acres, it's okay. You can still call it a pocket prairie. Nobody's going to be that much of a pain about things. Plano. All right, let's give this a start. Bought the house in '99. All right. It's on Houston black soil. Just so you know, both of my places are on Houston black soil, and the amount of actual area is roughly the same, both places. The one concession I asked for at the time was, please don't run the Bermuda all the way up to the front of the house. I'd like some planting beds, all right? And so they put these, with the little chop block, and you can kind of sort of see there's some little white Austin chop block along here on both sides, somewhere between 4 and 5 feet off of the foundation, because I knew I would like to do a little bit of gardening, but I'm an engineer and I'm really, really busy and I don't have a lot of time, so fine. So what I wound up with, I have a Bradford pear. You can see the beautiful Bradford pear right there. Yep, very proud, beautiful Bradford pear. And I got so lucky I won the lottery. They put 2 of them in the back garden. Why? Why did they do that to me? But I didn't have a lot of time. And when I was here, I came here in 98 and 99. I knew nothing, 0. So if somebody thinks I hatched knowing what I know, all right, I knew absolutely nothing about the Blackland Prairie. I knew nothing about the flora of Texas. I had no idea. So what did I do? Went to the nursery. It was just down the road. Yeah, see, I went to the nursery because I thought, surely these people know what's going on. They'll be very helpful. And I came home with a carload of azaleas and rose bushes. If I lived in Tyler, that would have been a wonderful thing. Alas, I live here in the Blackland. Obviously not a recipe for anything other than disaster. So the first year, my azaleas in the spring, they bloomed. Beautiful, lovely. This is great, right? Second year, they kind of sort of bloomed, and a few of them died. And by the third year, they're all dead. By the way, the other thing they told me to go put in were Indian hawthorns, which is probably the worst companion plant you can imagine for rose bushes, if you'd like to know why. I'll tell you later. You can ask me about it. But that's where I am. So at the end of this 3 years, I say to my husband, I know I'm not a great gardener, but darling, I'm not this bad. So I go out there, and I'm tired of wasting money and feeling like I'm a failure. Right? Nobody wants to be a total failure. I start going, okay, there's got to be some place. And I find this amazing thing called the Native Plant Society of Texas. Amazing. I found this place called the Native Plant. And by God, they had a chapter here in Collin County. And I'm going, sign me up. So I joined. And I started going to the meetings, and very, very quietly, this is when you and I first met. You won't remember it, but I kind of very quietly and shyly kind of sidled up to some folks, including people like Carol, in fact. And I'm like, this is what I did, and it kind of all died. Oops, could you help me, please? And, it's one of those, like, bless, you went and you believed them, and it's okay. It happens to us all. So first little baby steps, I had some areas in that front. By the way, for anyone who cares, the house was north facing. All right. So yeah, there was some shade. So, I've got some, all of a sudden now I get some frog fruit. Somebody said, well, put some frog fruit in, that'll work. And, some mist flowers. So I go out and I get Greg's blue mist flower and some salvia. I got some salvia Gregi because I could find that. Please note, anyone who knows me today knows that I would, well, that's not a Collin County native. I was not that person yet, okay? I really wasn't. And by the way, if I do that when you're talking to me about the Pocket Prairie, just tell me to shush, all right? And finally, I'm getting a little bit of success. So these garden beds in the front, I've got things that are healthy and they're thriving, and this is great. And I'm feeling way better about myself as being a gardener. Then it began. So fast forward, we're in 2008. And was I thinking I want a pocket prairie? No. The backyard conversion actually was driven by elder care. It was a given. I was going to wind up having to take care of my mother, who's a very stubborn woman, for anyone who met her. And she was also not very steady on her pegs. And the back garden, remember, there were 2 Bradford pears and a giant oak tree from my neighbor. And it was a hot mess back there. What they had put in terms of, the Bermuda, had really suffered badly. And when it would rain, because it was a big patio, and nobody thought about, hey, where's all that water going to go? It was a mucky, slippery mess out there. And I'm looking at that because it would go, and it dipped right down. And guess where the hose shut off was down that little bank. And I'm looking at this back garden and I'm thinking, broken hip, not a good thing. That is what actually drove me to start this conversion in the back garden. And so this gives you an idea, you know, the Bermuda was pretty sad. I know it's a butterfly bush, it didn't belong here. It went away, I promise. But what I did was I was like, well, this is kind of not, and I just got a little pitchfork and just tick, 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 tick. And then I had this thing that had like 4 prongs on it. I don't even know what it was called. I called it a turnip twaddler. And you could just, you know, run it along and that was fine. And it got all those roots out and you could stick them in the bag and off they went. This gave up the ghost easily, please note, because this Bermuda was bad. It was half dead. It was sad. And meanwhile, I was contacting a landscaper to come along because I needed solid walkways and stairs. No broken hips on my watch, okay? Didn't need that. And he kind of talked me into, well, what may be a tree? Because by now, both of those Bradford pears were gone. And I go, okay, something that's not going to be too big or too shady and things like that. He said, well, how about a desert willow? I know people go shocked now. She put a desert willow in. Yes, I did. All right. But, and you know, okay, so now he gets done and he's got, you know, got a nice walkway, nice and solid, got some stairs down here. And you'll notice, you know, I've got, you know, some tuberosa, Asclepias tuberosa. I've got a Turk's cap. There's some more, you know, some Blackfoot daisies over here. There's my desert willow going on. Yes, I know the butterfly bush was still there. It went away, I promise. All right, and the most, I'm still learning. I'm still making lots of mistakes back here. This is the most expensive darned annual anyway. It was called like Orange Zest. They sold it as being like really good for, you know, things like hummingbirds. I don't know, died after the first winter. Well, it was pointless. But, you know, I'm still getting there. I'm still making mistakes. But all of a sudden, I would be on, you know, on the weekend, and I'd go out early in the morning, and I'd sit out in this space, and I'd put out, you know, a little bird bath, bird feeder. And damned if this wasn't nice. There were, suddenly, lots of birds showing up out there. They didn't need to be exotic birds, but there were some birds out there. And there were butterflies and bees and some lizards running around. And I'm going, I'm liking this. This is kind of nice. So what did I do? I looked at the hell strip, okay, out in my alleyway, and I said, well, surely that won't take me too long to get rid of. So, you know, get out there with my little pitchforky thing and my turnip twaddler, and I do it again. And I tear out all of, you know, this Bermuda. And, you know, in the area that was sunny, I put in lantanas, and I discovered that not all lantanas are created equal. They had some that are the native one here in Collin County. And then they had these other things that, you know, I needed to fill in because and it was something or other gold. You know, they died after the first winter. It's fine. The native ones filled in. I didn't have to worry about it. And then in the shaded area down here, I started to get really exotic with some Collin Counties like chili pekin. Ooh. But I'm starting to, you know, really get into this whole thing and I'm really enjoying it. And I, you know, for anybody who happens to go out and go, if you have a stressful job, I was a design engineer, this is really relaxing to go out and deal with this kind of stuff, especially, you can just imagine the bad manager tearing it out. It was great. I absolutely loved it. By the way, for the rest of, you'll see some of my lawn in just a little bit, but for the rest of the lawn, all the time that I was there, I would scalp it after the end of the growing season and put down compost. I knew to do that anyway. At least I learned something in my life. By the time we get to it, you know, it's already been, it's actually in pretty good shape. So what do I do now? Well, I started thinking, I think I'd like to grow some vegetables. And so I start eyeballing this area over here off my drive. And, you know, I did that. And I got out there and I cleared a little patch. And that first year I grew, you know, some leafy greens and I don't remember what all else. And then I started looking at the whole strip and I thought, I really don't enjoy mowing this. Maybe I can do this here. So I called up my landscaper again several years later, and he comes out with his ground paint and we talk about it and he draws a little wiggly line. And I'm like, yeah, that looks great. And he comes in with a sod cutter and doop, 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 and it's gone. I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. I love that. So now I've got this whole area. It's all gone, and I'm starting to move into the age of Salvia farinaceae. I actually almost learned how to pronounce it. But there were other things that were coming in, more natives. I was getting some coneflowers out here. I was getting penstemons out here, native ones, even native to Collin County. miraculous. Still, still have my wonderful, whatchamacallit out here, the Greg's Blue Mist. But if you notice right there, whoop, here's a monarch butterfly. Well, hot diggity. I'm starting to feel like this is kind of fun and a success. And now I've actually somebody has mentioned the whole thing about gardening with native plants. And I'm all down for that, obviously. Then somebody gifted me a Texas mountain laurel. And I'm looking around thinking, where am I going to put this thing? And so I start eyeballing the front. I'm like, well, I may just as well. And I got that put in the front. And then I thought, well, I could put some more stuff around it, right? Surely I can do that. 3 years later, 3 years later, I had cleared all of this stuff out, little by little, bit by bit, over 3 years. And then I looked over to the other side, over here, where it's not pictured. And I went, oh, it took me 3 years. Hi, Mr. Landscaper, I'd like you to come back. And guess what? Remember, that's what it started like? That's what it looked like in the end. Took 6 years start to finish. That's before. There you go. There's after. That's what it looked like. Thank you. Yes. My rousing success. I'm just going to zoom in on one side of it here. And this just gives you an idea. You've got, here are the prairie grasses. I had all kinds of prairie grasses. You can't see the other side, but, I had little blue stem. I had big blue stem. I had side oats grama. I had bushy blue stem. I had everything out here. I've got basket flower, and I've got blanket flower, and I've got pentstemons growing in here, and I've got lots and lots of, I've got Echinacea pallida, I've got Echinacea gustifolia. I'm loving this. It's all over the place. This is wonderful. By the way, this is a little doggy walking stick, okay? And I left it there specifically because a lot of my neighbors had little dogs. They like walking. And I figured I'd leave them a little something. That wasn't, in August, I didn't grumble too much with all of this. So that's what it wound up looking like. And oops. So if we had stayed at this point, when this was done, I knew that elder care was winding down. That was just a fact of life. Things were happening. That was obvious. This was a house that was way too big, and we knew we were going to downsize. If we were going to stay there for another 10 years, I would have proactively been removing the Texas natives and replacing them with Collin County only natives. But I didn't do that. If it died, I did put back something that was just a Texas. I'd put back a Collin County native because by this point, I had started to become a plant hunter. And for those of you who've had conversation with me, you know what that's about. So we had about 3 years to enjoy the fruits of my labor, and we downsized. So moved to Allen, 2018, January, sign the paper, hand over a check. Again, I'm on Houston Black. I specifically wanted Houston Black. I love Houston Black so much, I would not buy a house if it was not on Houston Black. I'm that weird. My realtor, bless, she was a patient lady. And so now I've become the Hun. I truly have. I'm getting towards the end of my master's in environmental science and pedology. I'm starting to gear up to get involved in large-scale restoration. Brockdale, all right, I know I'm going to be, I have my exit plan as an engineer. It's coming. So I'm thinking, you can see what my little internal voice said. Man. 9 months. In 2 phases, 9 months, every bit of Bermuda was gone. Remember, 6 years in Plano, 9 months. The first round, the back, both sides, and about 4 feet in front, gone. They did that roughly in April. So that was, by the time they were done at the end of April with all of that, the native plant sales were already starting to happen. And guess what? I already had plants because I needed those plants. Gotta have those plants, man. I so loved what I had, I wanted it immediately. All right. And then in September, I had him back and he got rid of the rest of it. And I'm out there, I've got some more plants, I've got grasses, I'm throwing seed everywhere. I want everything, all right? And we're not talking about how many people here grow wild 4 o'clocks. The mirabilis, maybe Fran, yeah, Fran, that's a, yeah. The odder the thing was, the more I had to have it. Seriously, I wanted as many species as I could humanly get. Now, my pocket prairies provide seed for other pocket prairies, for restoration efforts, and all the rest of it. That's what I do. So we'll just show you, okay? That's what the front of the house looked like, okay? And this is when they were doing the first phase. So the two sides in the back and this one piece in the front. Yes, that's a giant pile of compost. And had I had less control over myself, I would have dove into that and rolled. As it were, I was in a meeting with my people who were doing the inside of the house, because I had the entire inside of the house redone. And she just looked at me and she's like, do you need to go outside for a moment? I'm like, yes, please. And I'm out there, I'm like grabbing them a handful. I'm loving every minute of this. I can't wait, and plants are coming soon. So this is the first spring. That's the first spring. All right, this is a huge flush of the Texas yellow star, and you've also got Indian blanket flower in here and all the rest of it. And you could tell it's every single solitary, so, you know, all of this, boom, all of it. Okay, couldn't wait, had to have it all, had to have it yesterday. So you pardon there's a gap, but this is what it was looking like. I think this is 23. I think by now that's 24. All right, there's a lot. There is plant matter, the likes of which God never thought humanly possible. There is biomass everywhere, and those who have seen my place know this. An occasional weird tree would pop up, and I might be able to reach it. All right, I might be able to reach it. Yes. Yeah, this thing was all sod cut in Allen. I didn't have time for that nonsense. I needed it yesterday. You have a machine that's a sod cutter and it has a blade on it that vibrates, and you put it down and it cuts the sod off. Okay, that is what a sod cutter does. You can get the job done a lot faster if you're using a sod cutter as opposed to doing it by hand. And this is what it's looking like right now. All right, and this is, you notice this is blank. And you notice that's been pulled way back. Oops. No HOA. I was so spoiled by my neighbors in Plano. They enjoyed what I did. They honestly, they liked it. They were curious about it. The worst thing I had anyone say to me was, would you mind putting in more flowering plants and not so many grasses, because the flowering plants are pretty. And they were very conscientious when it came to their gardens. They were out weeding their gardens, and they would take care of this stuff, and they didn't let things get weedy and stuff like that. I thought that was everywhere, and it's not. And every year, twice a year, somebody would complain to the city, and then I'd get a letter threatening me with fines, and then I'd have to get in touch with them and explain what I was doing and all the rest. And finally, we did come up with, please just put the signage out, then we can drive past and we don't have to send you a threatening letter. Fine, and I've done that. And this year, I've not had any nasty grumps. But that's been no fun. By the way, this monster is about 9 feet tall. That's a button bush. Anybody who wants to tell you that you have to have a lot of standing water or a lot of water in the area for a button bush, they're fibbing if they tell you, oh, well, it'll grow, but it won't flower, or it won't. Yeah, it does. And actually, when you walk past this corner, you can, there's a scent on this. It's the only cloyingly sweet smelling plant that I've ever really enjoyed. But this is what I'm having to do, is stop this, because people didn't like it. It was too close. When we get a windstorm, it might go down and it might be somewhere near, you know, the sidewalk. It might touch them. Don't get me wrong, I've had some people who have stopped and said, you know, what's this plant? Or, you know, this and that. But in general, I've had, here's one, what do you do with this? You keep those bees in there. I'll be sure to send a memo. By the way, that's something we really need to work on because bees have a bad rap in this world. But, you know, this is, I found out really fast and the hard way. Not everybody is going to be positive about this stuff, and sometimes people can get very ugly. So I'm having to rethink things. I do. Yeah, my signs on this thing actually, right, it's Xerxes Society, which is bees in general. And then I've also got the National Wildlife Federation sign out. And that so far has put it out. But that's what it's looking like right now. Right now, I've got a huge flush of Salvia azurea that's growing. This is my gaura, really big, really tall. I am thinning this out. The annuals, I can't have these because they like to go everywhere. I will say, these are my Salvia azurea. Originally, the Salvia azurea were way back here along the foundation. Things tend to yeah, they seed. They move. It's magical. But over time, I'm going to be, you know, I am rethinking things. We'll get to the rest of it. So this happens to be the cut through onto the into the alleyway. And up in this is, again, Salvia farinaceae. I've got a lot of Helianthus mollis over here. I've got a little bit of wine cup, some clasping coneflower. You can see this had, I've worked this edge since I took this photo. You know, got to pull it back. Just got to pull it back. This underside, I had to give Igor a slide, or at least a photo. Igor is one of 4 coral honeysuckles I have. And Igor, I kept giving him, you know, vertical things to climb on, and Igor ate 6 trellises. The taller the trellis, the taller this thing got. And I'd give it a haircut and be right back up again. So this time I gave Igor in January a brutal haircut. So Igor was only about your height. Okay, and I took all those other trellises out, and this time I gave him a horizontal space. It's only about 4 foot high. And so if anybody tells you, oh my God, don't cut back those coral honeysuckles. Yeah, I gave this thing a massive, look at this thing. This was like 3 days ago, okay? It's a happy plant. More Salvia farinaceae growing in here. Now the back garden. With all the complaints that I was dealing with, I was having to spend all my spare time working in the front. And by the way, I retired as an engineer and went full-time as a pro bono environmental scientist. Yeah, I had a lot of spare time. That was brilliant of me, wasn't it? Okay. So that's what it started out looking like. Okay, then they cut out the sod. This was the first season, so we've got some golden Alexanders, lots of Salvia farinaceae back in here. I've got some Baptisia. There's another one of my coral honeysuckles. You know, I've got some Monarda fitulosa back there. I had probably at the height of all of this, about 2 seasons in, I probably had about 130 species, Collin County. And I had some weird, crazy stuff. Like I said, the Mirabilis, the Royal 4 o'clocks. Not too many people are going to be trying to grow this stuff, you know. Loco weed, I wanted. I tried to grow it. It never could. It never took. That's fine. Not everything is going to happen, but. So for about 3 growing seasons, a little over 2 years, I was dealing on them with the front. That was my back garden in January. All right. Absolutely overrun. Okay, absolutely overrun. And that over there is what it was looking like about a month and a half ago. Most of the biomass back here that I could see and identify, I had thistle, Texas thistle. I had hundreds of them. It's not that I didn't love them and I left them until they went to seed, but damn, I don't need that many of them. Texas yellow star, which by now is actually pretty much spent. Passiflora incarnata. Ah, ow, dang. And it just grew over everything, okay? And guess what? Yeah, prickly lettuce. We love ourselves some prickly lettuce. This has taken me almost 2 months to finally clear it out. That's what it looked like about 2 days ago. Carol walked back there and said, oh my God, I didn't realize the back garden was that big. Yes. Now, I know it looks like I have absolutely just taken everything out, but no, I didn't take everything out. But I've got, you know, there are things that have survived this onslaught of being ignored. So when you hear pocket prairies are self-sustaining, no, they are not. That's a fib. I'm tired of this. But anyway, there are things back here. I've got some wine cup. I was shocked. I've got 2 chunks of wine cup. I still have at least 1 full Baptisia that has survived. My scarlet cup and my yellow Baptisia. I don't see it. And I had 2 of them, and I will cry for the loss of those. But I've still got some other things out here. They're just looking a little sad and a little bit flat. But there's still some stuff there, and there's still some good stuff. Okay. Participation award now. Okay. How many of you think, well, you've got it all cleared out? Certainly, this fall, you should be back out there planting and putting seeds down. How many of you think that's what I should do? Very well done, my fellows. Which is going to lead me into, now we go to helpful hints from Heloise. Patience. That's the answer. No. I need to wait and see what comes back and what survives. I'm not going to get out there doing anything with that for at least a year, probably 2. I have to see what's there. Plus, I've got a seed bed from the thistle, from the Texas yellow star, from, guess what, the prickly lettuce, as well as everything else. I need to know. Now, I'm not big on reading foils, so I'll let you read the foils as I babble on, but patience is a big part of this. You cannot rush this, because if you try to, you can really get yourself into a load of trouble. And that's exactly where I went. It's self-sustaining. You have a boundary, you have a border, and I will guarantee you stuff is going to come in. And it's not going to be the stuff that you want. Like all that prickly lettuce, isn't that lovely? Hard thing to learn. Not everybody is going to love it. And you have to deal with that. All right? You have to find something in you to tell you it's worth it if you encounter that. That's been tough for me. By the way, the other thing that happened in the back garden was a bunny rabbit got in. Actually, bunny rabbits got in. They did in some things, but there was one who was truly trapped. He has, of his own volition, left. And it's fine. He left of his, I had the gate open. And he finally decided there was not enough place to hide or enough to eat in the back garden. So he actually did leave of his own volition. But you have to find it in yourself to say that it's worth it. Don't rush nature. You're not going to succeed. This is a long haul endeavor. This is about perseverance. It honestly is. And just because you don't see the seeds the next season does not mean that they're not going to germinate. I threw out my lovely Gower. It's a wonderful Collin County native, but it's tall. And I put those seeds down, and it didn't come the next year. So, of course, I had to put other things in there because I needed volume. I needed more things. Guess what? 3 years later, they germinated. Oh, man, now I've got a ton of stuff out here. How am I going to deal with that? All right. Your boundaries are always going to be vulnerable. All right. And if you have Bermuda on the outside of whatever your space happens to be, okay, you got some blank spaces, weeds are going to find it. Remember, that happens. Potted plants will often come with something you didn't expect. That's how I got yellow oxalis in the back garden, is it came in a pot. Okay. It's life. All right. And what is outside your boundary is going to want to visit you. That is life. If you have a case where you have a pocket prairie defined and you've got Bermuda or other grasses on the outside, Jean, raise your hand. Jean Suplak has come up with a really ingenious solution. There are lots of solutions to this, but she has a really good one that involves using some cardboard. This is great, all right? Ask Jean. Like I said, there are lots of us out here. We have 1,000,001 thoughts and solutions because we've probably encountered it. Rabbits are a fact of life. I have never actually harmed a bunny. I have looked at them and today surely murder. I have chased one down the alleyway yelling, "Bad rabbit, you ate my Chamaecia scoloides." And any neighbors who didn't realize I was insane at that moment, they did, okay? But I can tell you what my bunnies ate in Plano, but what they ate in Plano is not what they ate in Allen, all right? I put stuff in Plano, they would not touch goldenrods, the solidagos, wouldn't touch it. Compass plant, wouldn't touch it. I put that stuff out and available in Allen, and they gobbled it down. What on earth? Do you guys not have a normal menu kind of thing? No. All right, that's just life. And remember, yours is not the only buffet. They're over, having snacks and your neighbors, and they're going to eat stuff maybe like spurge. That's yummy, nummy, nummy, nummy. So the little bunny faces is going around eating stuff. All right. And what goes in must come out. They're going to come over and they're going to deposit this in your area. And guess what? You're going to have some of it. All right. I try very hard to take it as a compliment that the bunny rabbits appreciate that I've given them such a delightful snack area, as it were. I've rung a dinner bell for them. All right. And this is where we get it down to it. All right. There are some folks, my people in Plano, they loved it. All right. Some folks are going to be curious. They're going to go, well, what is that? Some are going to like, why are you doing this? I have one of those neighbors. No lawn? Well, why? Well, and there are people who may hate it. And I've got at least one of those. And there was an incident. I was not home, and one of my neighbors had to deal with that. And that was very unfortunate. I went over and I apologized to her. She's an older lady. But, people are people. And you have to, at the end of the day, you have to find it. You have to find a way to say this is worth it. Okay? And the wildlife is always going to appreciate your efforts. Now, I will stop just for a moment, and I will say, when I had my place in Plano, and one of the reasons why I was so desperate to recreate it so quickly, I had a bobcat in my front garden. I had a coyote in my front garden. I had possums, all kinds of birds. I loved that. I craved that. I wanted that so much. I had to have it immediately. Bad idea. Yes. Yeah, but that's the kind of thing. The wildlife will appreciate it. And I have to kind of live for that. All right? Not for the neighbor that wants to yell and scream. So, again, before you get started on this journey, this should be joyful. This is not about stress. This is supposed to make you smile. All right? And when I was doing Plano, I was smiling. All right? And I loved when I started in Allen. And then it turned ugly. And I'm trying to get back to a place where it is joyful. I don't want it to be stressed. I want it to be a happy thing, and I want my wildlife, all right? And if that means I can't have flowers in my whole strip, okay. If that means I'm going to pull my edges in well off, okay, I'm going to do that because I want to be able to be happy and not have to worry about, oh my God, the wind is blowing, something is going to get there, running outside with my nippers. Because if this is not making you happy, if you are stressed, you need to ask yourself, what went wrong? And you need to walk it on down. I'm in that place right now. And it's fine. It's okay. I can't have my whole strip. I'm good with it. I will have the rest of it, but I'm not going to put myself back into stress situations, okay? I'm walking it on down. Planning. This is where we get to. What do you want to do? Plan. What's your dream? Okay, what are limitations? Okay, how much money do you want to spend on this thing? How big of an area do you want to do? And what's there that has to go? I mean, some areas like my back garden in Plano, that was like dead. It was really easy to get rid of that. Some places you have other things. Maybe you already have shrubs or trees or whatever it happens to be. Narrow down your focus, ask the questions, look for the resources. Okay, what's your dream? How do you envision using this space? All right, just to give you an idea. Behind me in the alleyway, 2 very large oak trees in my neighbor Alan's back garden. And for many years, he had eastern screech owls who nested in them. And the one year, this is a fountain, okay, so it's a little solar bubbler thingy. So, it's got a basin up the front and there's the top. And Mom and Dad brought the 4 fledglings into my back garden. And they got into this fountain, and they were literally, this was the most amusing darn thing you could ever hope to find. They were playing King of the Hill. One of them would get up on the top, and the other 3 would be walking around in the water basin, and they'd go round and round until one of them finally got daring enough and then jumped up and flew up and knocked the other one off. They had a blast, okay? Sitting outside that's what I love about this, and that's where I want to be able to enjoy that. But what is it you want out of this, all right? And you can use whatever tools. If somebody tells you, oh, well, you need to go get landscaping tools. Why? If you want to use them, please feel free. But there is no requirement. Pen and paper, use your salt and pepper shaker collection. It doesn't matter. You do whatever makes you feel happy. Again, it should be a joyful process, not a stressful one, all right? And what are your limitations? If you have an HMO, now some people like this, well, I'm going to do it and ask for forgiveness later attitude. There is nothing more disappointing and frustrating than if you start down this road and then all of a sudden they come in and go, you get rid of that. Work with them. And there are people in this organization who have been working with HOAs and have advice and counsel and maybe can help you, all right? I don't advise just going and doing it without understanding what you can and cannot do, all right? I didn't have HOAs. Your soil type, web soil survey. Now, I'm going to say this. Some folks wind up, and this is more and more common now, you are on a man-made entersoil. They have come through, they have scraped it, they have bulldozed it, they brought in all kinds of fill. Rodney, raise your hand. Rodney has this problem, okay? And there are limitations as a result. There are things you can do to improve this entersoil, this non-soil soil, but you cannot. None of us has a magic wand. I cannot give you back a vertisol or a mollisol. It's just life. And there are some limitations because a lot of the time they use gravel, they use sand, they use whatever. Now you wind up with a soil that it's going to drain. It's not holding water like the clay and things like that. So again, there's Rodney Thomas. He's had some experience with this. If this is what you find you've got, talk to Rodney, and I'm sure there are others. But that is a reality, and it will limit what plants you're going to be able to have that are going to thrive, all right? And there is no way I can walk out and go, abracadabra. It doesn't work. Once they have gone and put that amount of fill and done that amount of damage, in our lifetimes, it's not coming back. I wish that there are things to mitigate, there are things to improve, but there's no bringing it back at that point. It's been destroyed. If you've got any erosion or drainage issues, deal with them. My back garden in Plano, obviously, I had a really big patio. That's one of the reasons why there was so much water flowing through the back garden. It made it a big mud pit. When we did the conversion, guess what? I dealt with that. Okay, we put in some drainage solutions. It's always easier to deal with it up front while you're doing it, rather than you've got a drainage problem here, and you're going to put your garden here, and then you go, oh, I have a drainage problem. And now you've got to go try to put a drainage problem in on top of what you've already planted or seeded, all right? Try to deal with things up front. If you've got a hard pan, talk to me after. That's a whole nother issue. Yes, you can deal with it. But hard pan is actually a layer of limestone that has formed under the soil surface. It is too far down. If somebody tells you they're going to take care of your hard pan problem with a rototiller, no, they're not, all right? There are ways to deal with this that do not involve a backhoe digger. Talk to me, all right? I've only had 2 people in all my time that had hard pan, so it's not that common in this area. If you've got compacted soil, compost, compost, compost. That's it. Please, you do not, just because it sounds more exotic or it costs more money, does not make it better, all right? And in fact, some of these things, you know, people are like, well, should I put down mushroom compost? You got to be careful with some of these. Those can have soluble salts in them. And that can be very damaging to your soil biota as well as your plants. You've got to be careful about this. I use Texas Pure product. I've been using Texas Pure product for 20 years and I've never had an issue, okay? It's great. It's just regular compost. It's pH neutral. It's wonderful. Got all those good nutrients in it, all right? And that will help your compacted soil. You do not need to till it. You do not need to turn it. Please don't. We are on clay for the vast majority of us. Don't do it. You're destroying your structure, all right? And you're going to introduce more problems for your soil if you start doing that. We are not on loam. We have clay, and it's beautiful and the best soil in the world. Remember that. Be proud of our clay. Budget. How much money do you have to spend, and how much, and what do you, on which things do you want to spend it? All right. Obviously, I had a landscaper off and on Plano to do things. I was not going to build stairs. Okay. And if I needed an area done and I wanted it done quickly, I go, oh, yeah, sod cutter. Yeah, I know. 9 months, got it all done. paid a price on that one. I happen to love sweat equity. That's why it took me 6 years. And the vast majority of that I did by hand. Like I said, the bad manager. Loved it. All right. But don't feel ashamed if you want to hire a landscaper for whatever reason. You may not have time. It may not be the best use of your time. Do what you want. Spend your money on what you want. Okay? Again, should be a happy time, not an unhappy time. And here's the main thing. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't do what I did. I'm telling you now, do not do what I did. You can always grow it. Remember, it took 3 years on one side in the front of my gardens, all right? 3 years. You do too much, too fast, you know, they cleared it out, I'm stuffing plants in the ground. Oops, there's a thing called snail seed vine over there. Oh, look at what it did to my Tabona Montana. Went right up, girdled it, killed it. Yeah. I lost 3 of them because of this stupid snail seed, and also it was growing in and underneath and through the roots to get that stuff out. Guess what? My Tabona Montana, bye-bye. So, and then on the other side, I have, you know, nutsedge. That's fun. When you got this thing planted out like crazy, and now you've got nutsedge and you're trying to deal with it. Yeah. Okay, that's where we get to, folks. All right, time, don't be in a rush. All right, that's just if you miss something, it's okay to miss something. It's fine. Give it time to see what grows back. That's why I'm not going to jump right in there this fall and start replanting stuff. Not going to happen, folks. You know, I've been doing that most of this year. Okay, I've been piglet. I don't like being piglet. I don't want to be piglet anymore. Okay, there's time. Trust me. And you have to deal with what's there now. So if you're going to be using a sod cutter, you're going to have to dispose of that. This happened to be Plano. One of the ways that they dealt with this mud pit over here was they put down pavers. If you've got to take this stuff out, like concrete or pavers or anything, sod that you've cut out, you're going to have to think about how you're going to dispose of it. If you have a landscaper, oftentimes they're going to take a lot of this stuff, but otherwise, you're going to have to deal with it. I got lucky. I had a neighbor who wanted these. I'd pick them up, stack them up. He'd go grab them and take them to his house. Yay, it didn't cost me anything. But that's part of your budget, too. Narrow down your focus. You know, are you really interested in pond? You know, you've got Rodney over here, loves, you know, doing gardening for birds and things like that. Whatever you want, you know, do you have to accommodate people? My back garden was because of elder care coming, all right? And, you know, and then you've got, you know, your plants. I was a collector. I became hardcore collector lady, all right? Man, but any of these, and it doesn't matter, this happened, you know, everybody likes the sleepy bees, and you got a, you know, monarch caterpillar over here, there's lovely little, you know, a hummingbird. That's crow poison. I grow crow. Who else grows crow poison? I know, Fran, you have crow poison. It's one of those things. It blooms a little bit early in the spring and then it's gone. Most people are never going to put this in. So, and you know, there's a rose-breasted grosbeak over there. Oh, never mind. My bag is ringing. Ignore it. All right. And ask questions. All right. And that's just a big thing. You've got the Native Plant Society of Texas. You've got this organization, the Master Naturalist. There are lots of us, as you saw from a show of hands, there are lots of us who have done this before, all right? We have gone before, we have driven our VW bugs directly into the gigantic potholes, all right? We can help you avoid the oopsies. Anybody out here, Mike is another one. The Maximilian sunflower in a prairie has lots of pressures and competition. 4 feet, 5 feet, if it's in a really happy place, maybe 6. Put that into your garden and it's on your roof. This does not make people happy. All right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's me. That's where you can find me. We can help you avoid some of these crazy oopsies. All right. So you're going to prep. I'll give this to you. You figure out your border. If you're not very good at figuring it out with, you know, salt and pepper shaker stuff, you can go ahead and just, you know, lay your garden hose down, use a little bit of paint, whatever it is. Okay. I've gone through this. If you have grass and you've got to remove it, you know what? St. Augustine is the nicest thing because you just, okay, until you reach mom. Mom requires a little bit of a shovel. Okay, Bermuda, again, I used a pitchfork in my turnip twaddler. You could use a sod cutter and then a pitchfork to make sure you get the roots out. Okay, I'm not going to go into an awful lot of this. It just happens to be part of the presentation. But there are other ways of doing this. They're called solarization and smothering. These take a very long time, minimum a year and a half. Okay, one uses plastic or tops, and that relies on heat. And then the other one allows water and air to be exchanged using usually cardboard with mulch on top of it, and it kills it with rot. And then there's herbicide. None of these are a one and done solution. None of these kills seed bed, and you have to deal with the seed bed. That's why you have to put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off. All right, and that's just the reality of it. Herbicide is the same. You may or may not kill it. Like I said, I'm not going through all of this. But herbicides, there are things in this world where, there are times when it's necessary. All right, Johnson grass, very deep tuberous roots. You could sit and you can dig at some of that stuff forever, and you will not kill it. I'm sorry, you're just not. Sometimes it is necessary. Scabiosa, when that gets old enough, that stuff puts down a taproot. You are very unlikely to get that entire taproot. It's going to come back. So yeah, there are times when Roundup is a reality, like it or not. Shrubs and trees, remember, eastern red cedars, when you cut them down, they're dead. Everything else will sucker. So if you just cut it, it's going to come back. All right. And some things are even more insidious. And if you're really curious, there's one of the privets. You can ask Rick. You cut it, you use herbicide on it, it's still going to sucker. You have to girdle the darn thing in order to truly get rid of it. I actually girdled a tree, one. Yeah, that one that you found at Brockdale. It did. Stupid thing died. Thank God. But girdling is not necessarily something any of us want to have to be doing. But don't just think that if you cut it down, it's gone. It's not that simple. You will be dealing with suckering. Right now, I am dealing with crepe myrtle suckering. Lovely. Crepe myrtle suckering will go on long after I'm dead, I'm convinced. So you get it all cleared out. You know what you're doing. Congratulations. Now, guess what? Now you can go put, some plants in the ground. And, typically in the fall, don't be afraid to see you put the seeds down. Yes, the birds will eat some. It's all right. They'll eat them in your place. They'll take them to your neighbors, and your neighbors will get to share in some of your native plants. Isn't that lovely? Like that. Yeah. Some plants, you can do the cold stratification, and in fact, usually with milkweeds, in order to better get, them to germinate, they will often say to do the cold stratification. If you have any questions about cold stratification, certainly check out the Native Plant Society of Texas and bring back the monarchs to Texas resources. You can also ask Carol and any number of other people in here who've done cold stratification. Plants typically go in spring and fall. If you try to plant something in August here, bless. Okay, I'm going to do that. This is a very different kind of landscape. All right? That's the reality of it. It is very different. And things are going to seed. They're going to move. You're going to deal with that. You can deadhead things. Offer up your seeds to other organizations or to your fellows. You can dig them out. How many flats of please take me home and give me a good home have we seen out here? All right. A lot of the stuff that I have as extra, dozens and dozens of plants this year alone have gone out of my gardens, and I still have too much. All right. One thing that a lot of people forget about is if you have an existing system, watering system, you have to make certain that where you have your garden, either it's not getting that excess water if you have to continue watering your lawn or whatever it is, or that you can cut it off in that area, all right? Our native plants do not like that much water. Oftentimes what will wind up happening is those plants are going to get really unhappy. They can even rot out, right? They don't like it, okay? And, be a messy gardener, not as messy as I've been. But, most of us leave stuff until February. That leaf litter is really nice. You've got a lot of insects down in there that have gone into torpor. That's where they're hiding, okay? Lots of critters are in that leaf litter over the winter going, ugh. But it's better than nothing. You take it all away, they have nowhere to go. Birds love it. You throw 3 twigs on the ground. Birds are going to come, they love it. They think it's a brush pile. It's wonderful. But those insects are down in there, and guess what they want to eat? Many of them, those insects. Plant the stuff, if you love your birds, stuff that the granivorous birds are going to love. There is nothing like being able to sit in the wintertime and watch your goldfinch num away on a Monarda fitulosa, getting the seeds out of it. It's just, that's just, you know, that's it. Compost goes out in the fall if you feel you need it. Compost the cow manure. If you are going to get manure, do not just go to the stable, bring it home, and put it down on your gardens. That's known as hot shit. Don't do it. I had a neighbor in Plano who did that. He was like, I don't understand why my plants are turning yellow. Yes, you've burned them. Manure must be composted. That's the end of it, okay? Dry molasses, soil biota oftentimes winds up dead. You wind up with a very barren soil biota because previous owners, you know, may have nuked it to within an inch of its life. You know, soil biota, throw some dry molasses down. You know, if you don't see worm sign, that means it's probably been nuked badly, and hopefully it can come back. But you have to, you know, dry molasses is something that it's kind of like a Monster Energy drink for your soil biota in the spring, honestly. You know, you hand them a caffeinated beverage and they're like, wow. Okay, I worry about soil. And there you go. Spread the word. That's what I do. That's what we do. Susan Abernathy has a marvelous presentation that has a lot of us. And she will say, oh, this group wants to have the, you know, would you mind? And I'll show up, and Gene will show up, and Rodney will show up, and Rick and Lisa will show up, and we'll, yeah, because this is how we get the word out about all this stuff. You don't have to do massive anything. You can do just a little patch. And it helps. Next time you're driving down your road, here's my challenge to you. Drive down and look during daylight hours and ask yourself from the perspective of the wildlife, can I find some shelter here? Can I find something to eat here? Can I find something to drink here? Can I rear my young here? And what you find is a lot of it is a desert wasteland. These little pocket prairies are becoming more and more essential. You can make a huge difference with a very small area. And to all of you, I say thank you who have done this, and thank you who have considered.
I'm involved with the HOA as an architectural committee guy. If you want to put something like this and you have an HOA, you focus on the backyard, there's not much they can do about it. Say it again.
I'm getting away. I'm running away. I'm turning.
Try to repeat it, okay? Try to repeat it, what Alex was saying. Alex, what were you saying?
Oh, I can go ahead. So Alex has said that, you know, if you're dealing with an HOA, oftentimes what you'll find is that the rules will tell you that you can do this kind of thing in your back garden. Anything else on that? Yeah, oftentimes in the front, they're very restrictive, and you're not going to be able to do this kind of thing. But, you know, you can always ask. You can always ask. The worst that can happen is they say no.
Any other questions for Lorelei? I'll bring you the mic. If you got a question, who's got one? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Hi. So this is maybe a bit of a simple question, but is unfortunately very relevant to me right now. Do you have any tips for getting rid of Nandina?
Okay, so the question is how to get rid of Nandina. Any hints or tips? Any of the shrubs that you're going to find that have been in the ground for quite some time, just, you know, you can try to pull them out, but the very rational thing is it's not going to happen. So my suggestion for Nandina is cut it off at about ground level, get a little spray bottle of Roundup, and spritz that stump. That's how you get rid of it.
I've done that. It may take 2 or 3 times. It may try to come back a couple of times, but that does work. Yeah.
Yep. Where are we going?
On the Nandina, if you don't want to use herbicides, we are currently in the process of doing the rot method with the cardboard and mulch for ours. It's been there about 20 years, but we haven't seen any shoots or anything coming up, so it seems to have worked so far.
Okay, so we had an alternative suggestion in terms of the Nandina. Gentleman here has used the rot or the smother method with cardboard and mulch, and he has not seen any growth back instead of using herbicide on the stump.
I have three questions from the Zoom meeting. What's the number one tip you would give to someone who wants to start and maintain a successful pocket prairie?
All right, the number one tip I give for anybody who wants to start and maintain a successful pocket prairie, my first suggestion is to start small, something that's manageable. All right, that's my number one damn tip, because don't bite off more than you can chew. Really, start small. You can expand it every year, and pretty soon it's pretty darn large. But if you do it all at once, it becomes an insurmountable kind of task. Yeah, that's my number one thing.
Where do you purchase your native plants?
My native plants, oftentimes what I'm looking at is seeds, okay? And seeds are from around this area, just depending. Also plants, Native American seed, they sell bare root plants. And then it's from my fellows. You know, I have had plants from Carroll. I mean, we've done plant rescues. We did one in Oak Point. That's how I got a whole bunch of my Leotris and things like that. Those are my main sources.
And the last question.
Hang on.
Sorry,
Sorry.
the last question from home is, since I don't have a compost tumbler, is it okay to dig a shallow hole and deposit food scraps into it in my pocket prairie? Could this have an adverse effect on Houston black soil?
Okay, if somebody is asking, if they don't have a compost tumbler, but they do want to compost their waste, the kitchen waste, is it okay to dig a hole, and is that going to have any, you know, to compost it in the ground, and is that going to have any negative impact on things? You really don't want to be doing that, because you are going to attract things that you're not going to like. Rats, mice, you want your neighbors to get freaky. Also, smell can be an issue with food scraps and things, all right? So I am not going to advise that, but there are other methods that you don't have to have a big tumbler if you want to deal with food scraps. Badaki, there's an entire method of dealing with kitchen scraps and food scraps that, you know, it's a small little, and you bury it, but it's in a container. And that turns it into compost, and you don't have the problems with it. Find a master composter; they can help you.
One more.
We've got one more question. We got a question here.
For buying native plants, do
Yes.
you ever go to Randy Johnson Organics?
I have not gone to Randy Johnson for anything in my home. I have dealt with Randy for other efforts. Okay.
Well, I highly recommend. He's very good and grows great plants.
Okay, so we have a recommendation as another source. Randy Johnson for native plants.
Charles,